episode of Thunder Trader Chat. I am Dan Hodgman, sitting down today with Derek out of Kansas. Derek, how's it going?
Pretty good. How you doing?
It's a Friday. It's sunny. As soon as we're done here, I'm hitting the water and going out on the boat, so I can't complain.
Nice. Already been to the park this morning with my girls.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. How many kids do you have?
I have 2 and then 1 on the way.
Oh, man. So, trader, ICU nurse, and a father of 3, or 2 with the 3rd on the way. How do you find time to trade?
Oh, luckily I only work 3 days a week, so usually like on a Monday or Tuesday, those tend to be my trading days where I can have my full attention to it. That's why I wear this shirt here.
I love it. That's spectacular.
The beginning of the week is usually the most that I have to do it, even though I have been, as of lately, trading on days that I work. Try to do it before I get to work, but.
And things obviously been going pretty good. You've taken out 15 grand over 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
First off, expected, kind of a shocker, and what are you doing with it?
Definitely was a shocker. I was only planning on maybe doing 500 to 1,000 a week. And then my first week ended up being 13,000. And then the next week I got overconfident and gave half of that back within a day or two. 2 days really, but, but yeah, that was definitely a shock. So I had to, get my bearings back straight and just kind of go at it again, start slow, and then having some success. So it's a lot of ups and downs along the way so far.
Right. I think that's trading in general.
And after a few losing days, I'm like, man, I better pull some out before I lose it all. So I just bought a minivan. I used some of the profits that I'd already been saving up for a minivan, but some of that went to finishing saving up for it.
No, that's awesome. There we go. So we're putting it to practical use.
Yeah.
So Derek, what are the markets you're typically trading?
Primarily the E-minis, but when I was doing simulation in crude oil when I was still doing the combine originally, but then the volatility kind of exploded and so I backed away from that and didn't want to touch that, and I'm still kind of leery around that. But
yeah, absolutely. When that stuff's moving like that, it's frightening to see it go negative $17. It definitely, makes people want to shy away from it a little bit.
Yeah.
So when you're looking for a setup, when you're looking to get in the trade, what are some of the things that you're looking for to go ahead and execute?
So I'm looking for, I trade primarily supply and demand. That's how I learned. So I'll wait till price gets into an area of supply or demand and execute from there. That's what I try to do most of the time anyway, if my emotions don't get involved. But.
Absolutely. So speaking of emotions, what are some of those struggles that you found that really have made some things a little bit more difficult than others?
Live trading is definitely a different experience. You get used to trading simulation, and then when it really counts, you might take profits off too early, or you might be tempted to move a stop just because every time it has hit my stop in the past, it's turned and reversed right back around. So I'm like, maybe I should just widen that out just a little bit more this time. And it always ends up biting you anyway.
Right. But as we start to make those little adjustments like that, we're thinking, all right, I'll be okay. The market finds us, and, focusing on the trade at hand and saying, you know what, I took the loss here. We're moving on to the next one. Speaking of that kind of aspect, when you're entering into these trades, how are you looking at your risk?
So I'll typically look at it on how wide the zone is. So if the zone is a lot wider, I will try to size down my contracts. And then, so more of a monetary risk, maybe 500 to 750 on a trade. If I'm trading 3 contracts, that's 5 points on 3 contracts, 750 for E-minis anyway. Or if the zone happens to be a 10-point zone, I might use how wide that area is, then I might use 2 contracts and vice versa. So sizing down for bigger zones, for longer moves. Yeah, so typically in that type of fashion.
That's perfect. I think that's one of the biggest things that a lot of traders, especially newer traders, when they get into these trades, they get an idea of, well, I'm trading 3 contracts and it doesn't matter anything else. I'm going to trade my 3. And if I have to open up my risk, that's where things get a little bit hairy, a little bit difficult. Something that has me curious, I have my background, I was in the military, and I found like ways to bring military experiences into trading. Being in a high stress environment like the ICU, how has that, have you found carrying that over into trading at all?
Not so much, because it's like, when I'm at work and I have a high stress environment, I can actually influence what's happening. When I'm in a high stress trade, I'm at the mercy of the market. The only thing I can do is get out of something painful or get out of something early if it looks like it might reverse. And so it's definitely quite challenging how much stress that the markets can provide. I get more stress out of that than at work. When at work, it's life and death at some moments, and then in the market, it feels that way, even though it's just numbers and charts on a screen.
It's almost like the lack of control is a struggle when it comes to trading sometimes.
Yeah.
Looking back, how long have you been trading?
So I've been trying to trade with Top Step, and finally had succeeded recently for about 2 years. And before that, I kind of started with a small Forex account, and ended up blowing that up, and
Right.
$2,000 gone, wife not happy, you're never doing this again. So that kind of stuff. And so I kind of moved into, well, how can I do this? Because trading with a $2,000 account, trying to make any sort of money off of that, I mean, making 2% in a day, that's quite a bit of risk, and that's only 200, or that's not very much money on that size of an account. So I started researching prop firms and stuff like that, and I found Top Step.
That's awesome. And did you go into the Forex side right away, or did you go right into futures?
I went straight into the futures. Futures were new for me, but I traded with my own TD Ameritrade futures account on simulation, just to kind of get the feel for it for a while, because it was a completely different everything. Learning about contract specifications, learning about tick size, and calculating your risk. It's a lot different than pips.
Absolutely. It's a total change. You're stuck. It doesn't matter. You have to trade one standard lot. You don't get the micro contracts, and it puts a lot on the line. And I think that's one of the exciting things too about the futures aspect is, there's a lot of capital that can be traded. So when you started trading futures, what was your initial instinct? Like, this is going to be easy. This is awful. How did it go in the beginning?
Well, I think what really hurts in the beginning is when you have a huge string of winners right out of the gate. And then you're like, oh, piece of cake. I got this. Like, why isn't everybody doing this? Or why didn't I do this 10 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of had some of that in simulation, and then went live with my own capital in the futures, and said bye-bye to another $6,000 there. It's like, yeah. So
yeah, and I think that happens a lot. I think we get into this and it's exciting. We start making money. I'm right there with you. Like, I'll have great weeks, and I'm thinking, man, I'm on fire. I've been nailing everything. And then, you go in with that mentality the next week, and it's, whoa, all right, there's a nice little swift kick in the butt. Bring it back, slow things down. What were some of the biggest, when you look at your trading, what are some of the strengths that you try and focus on?
Usually momentum. So going with the trend. So everything on a small time frame, everything looks like you're going counter trend, but when you zoom out, you're still going with the trend when you buy a pullback or pullback into a demand area. And so making sure that you're using multiple time frames. I try to make sure I use multiple time frames, and just pulling the trigger. I've been called risky in my trading. I've shown these trades to my wife quite often. She's like, "That's a lot of risk you're taking." And so I guess some of the strength is being able to pull the trigger on a trade and not hesitating when the opportunity presents itself. But that can also be a weakness if I'm pulling the trigger too early.
I'll tell you, I think that's actually something I don't think people talk about enough. To be good at this, you have to be willing to take risk. And as long as you can manage your risk, you can do well. I know a lot of traders, when they get going,
order filled.
It's like, wait a second. I have X amount of money in my account. I'm really happy with that. I obviously want to make more, but as soon as I see it turn red on me, even if it's $20, fear starts to set in. That next trade gets a little bit harder to take if you're not willing to take that risk. And that's what this business is. It's a risk reward business, and we have to find ways to balance that out to continue to grow those accounts to be successful at this.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of traders that are going through the combine. You said it yourself. It took a couple of years to get through this. Obviously, it's not the easiest thing. For anyone listening out there, what would be your biggest piece of advice to getting through the trading combine?
Give yourself more time than you think to do it. Don't try to swing for home runs and try to knock it all out of the park in a week, or the minimum of 5 days or 10 days if you're on the second step. Give yourself permission to take longer. That was my struggle, and I still sometimes struggle with that. And I need to remind myself, hey, buying 100 resets doesn't make sense. It'd make more sense to give myself 30 or 40 trading days if I needed to hit those profit targets and to manage risk properly.
Absolutely. That's a great piece of advice. I think trading, the markets are going to tell you what you're going to make and lose every day. We can't come in and say, I'm going to make $1,500 every single day, because some days the markets are just going to, give you that kick in the butt. They're going to, they're going to trade against that trend. They're going to do things that we're not prepared for. So giving yourself time is vital. And that's what's interesting about this industry. So many people, you have your regular job, you're getting paid on every Friday or 1st and 15th of every month, and you got to get in this rhythm. And if you show up to work, you're going to get paid. Where trading is not that way. You have, great 3 weeks where you make 15 grand, and then you have to give some back. And it's an ebb and flow, and trying to find ways to balance that. So giving it time, great piece of advice. All right, one last question for you. It's my favorite thing to ask anyone. Wildest crazy dream that trading can provide for you, what would it be? Obviously, you got the minivan. What's the next thing?
Retiring early from nursing, from being an ICU nurse. It's stressful. It's hard on my body, and just being able to work from home and provide a nice lifestyle for my family and kids. And so
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Derek, I can't thank you enough for sitting down with me. I hope you and your family have a spectacular Friday and enjoy your weekend. And I look forward to seeing your name back up on the boards and pulling out more money.
Yeah, it'll be there pretty soon.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good one.
You as well. All right.